Welcome to Leaders in Lending. I'm your host, Jeff Keltner. This week's episode features my conversation with Corlinda Wooden, the Chief Retail Officer at Unitus Community Credit Union in Oregon. We really delve into specifically an approach they developed in 2019 to target growth in the Hispanic community around where the credit union is and the results they've seen. I think it's really fascinating. It's a great example of what is both a business objective and a DEI initiative. I think so often those can be seen as in opposition, and here really achieving both great business results and helping a community that was truly underserved by existing products and services. This really talks through the products they had to build, the personnel changes, the processes, how they went about building it, what they built, the results they've seen. It's a fascinating story, lots of great advice and experience that you can learn from and take advantage of. So I really recommend this. It's a great story. And I think you'll really enjoy it as much as I did. So please enjoy this conversation with Corlinda Wooden. Corlinda, welcome to the podcast, and thanks for making the time to join us today.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation. I always like to start off by asking my guests a little bit about how you ended up here. I know most of us didn't grow up dreaming of being in the banking sector. At least most people I've talked to did not, and yet we're all here. So tell me a little bit about your career path and what brought you to where you're at today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually had a friend of mine when I was a senior in high school that said, "Hey, I just got a job at a bank down the road and they're going to help pay for college. You should look into that." And so lo and behold, that's what I did. The moment I turned 18, I went and applied for a large national bank and started out as a part-time teller and got tuition reimbursement while I went to college full-time. And then from there, it just actually turned into a career. And I worked my way up from, a part-time teller to the banker, to the assistant manager, branch manager, and then moved over into the corporate training department. And from there, I found the light and moved over into the credit union space, as we like to say. And just continued to grow my career from there. And now I'm a chief retail officer. So it's been a fun ride along the way for sure.
I love that it's both a high school story and like a financial incentives for joining they'll pay for college. I'm curious, was there never a point in college, or was there a point where you went, I did this thing to pay for school and now I'm in school, but I found through my schooling experience that's not where I want to go back. It's interesting to me that you start, many people launch their careers post-college, and maybe I've heard a lot of stories about getting an offer and starting in the industry and just kind of working their way up. But starting pre-college and then sticking with it is an interesting twist on that story. Tell me, was there a moment when you said, this was nice that they paid for college, but I don't think this is where I go when I'm done? Or did something you stuck with the whole way?
Yeah, it's interesting in the sense that at the time, being a young woman, coding was coming out. It was really popular. And so I thought, oh, that's going to be something that can, be a good wealth generation for me in the future. And so I actually majored in the School of Business under information systems and qualitative analysis, which is such a mouthful. And really what it is it's like all the IT space. You learn around networking and database and coding and business along the way. And I remember in the middle of the night trying to code this program, and it was just not coming to me. And I thought, this is not for me. And so I double majored at the last minute into management under the School of Business as well. And then I realized that leading people and developing people is my jam. That is my passion. And and the financial industry allowed me to do that. And so here I am today.
All right. That's great. I had similar moments in college where I also majored in computer science, what my school called computer engineering, which was some weird mix of computer science and electrical engineering. But I remember sitting there going, I'm pretty good at this and I get it, but there's a lot of people here who are really good at this and I'm not those people. Maybe I need to find a way to be in the space, but not trying to compete with those guys because they just thought in code in a way that I never could. So it was a little moment where you go, this is really interesting stuff, but this is not what I need to do for the rest of my life.
Right.
Interesting. Well, I wanted to start our conversation with, I think it was in 2019, a strategic plan around specifically the Hispanic market that you guys developed. And I want to kind of just understand the history and genesis of that, because it was, to me, a really interesting story and kind of plays the DEI angle a little bit, but is also, I think, very different than most of the DEI initiatives I hear about in a number of ways. So I just would love to get kind of the background on what that strategic planning process was, what the opportunities were, and then we'll dive into it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think back, I had just rejoined the credit union. So I had come off of a stint of being a consultant for 5 years. And in that time, I had also worked for Filene Research Institute. And so I was helping credit unions launch their I-10 lending programs across the country. And so I had that background. And then I came back to the credit union in the role that I have today. And my CEO had also come from credit unions in California prior to coming to Unitas. And he had experience rolling out I-10 lending at his credit unions as well. So together, we already had experience and knowledge and passion about strengthening the support for the Hispanic community. And so with that, we had attended actually a World Credit Union Council conference in the Bahamas in 2019. And one of the action items, our CEO, Stephen Stapp, he does a really good job at any time we go to a conference of holding a debrief session, saying, what did you learn? What do we want to apply? And from there, we created an action plan. And we said, this is a really great opportunity for us to better strengthen this in the Portland metro area, because we're not seeing a lot of that today. And so, one, it was a benefit of, supporting a market that hasn't predominantly been supported by large financial institutions today. And so it was a good business opportunity for our credit union. And two, it's doing the right thing and supporting marginalized communities that have not had the same opportunities as others. And so from there, we knew that this is something that I always refer to it as a marathon and not a sprint. If you try and sprint into this, you're going to enter it in a really disingenuous way. And we really wanted to build authentic trust in the community. So with that, we created a 3-year strategic plan. And that plan was built into the strategy for the credit union. It was something that the leadership team supported and had buy-in to, as well as our board. And so from there, that really started the foundation of our work.
So first of all, I want to ask you to clarify one thing for anybody who's not familiar. What is an I-10 lending program? I know what it is and you know what it is, but in case there are audience members who are not familiar with an I-10 lending program.
Yes, great question. Thank you. Yeah, that is an individual tax ID number. So if you do not have a social security number, you can be issued an individual tax ID number.
Okay. And I want to say that the reason I thought this was such an interesting story is so often what we think of as DEI initiatives come out of HR or out of somewhere, and they're almost not opposite to, but they're kind of totally orthogonal to business objectives. It's kind of like, we're going to do this thing because we feel like we should, but it's not really, it's almost a cost center versus a revenue driver versus a growth driver. It's like a thing we're going to do that maybe it's some penalty to the org. And I hate that way of thinking about it because it is really so much of a business opportunity. You guys were really looking at it as, this is an opportunity for growth. This is an opportunity to bring in new customers and to drive more business, and to do the right thing at the same time, but not thinking of it as oppositional to the objectives of the organization, which I think is such a refreshing approach and such a more sensible approach, because generally you can't sustain things that are in opposition to the growth of the credit union. Like, they're just not going to maintain over time. You don't win that marathon, right? You pull off to the side and go, forget this, because short-term priorities take over. Tell me a little bit about what you talked about the business opportunity. How did you think about what that opportunity was, quantifying what you thought you were missing out on or what was out there to be taken advantage of? How did you think about what that opportunity looked like?
Yeah, so we partnered with another amazing support group called Coopera. And Coopera supports credit unions in this space, not only with the Hispanic community, but multi-community or multicultural communities in general. And they were able to take a look at, within a 5-mile radius of each of our branch locations today, what is the current demographic and what is it predicted to be 5 years from now? And so that told us right there, the growth of the Hispanic market was so significant that it was an easy slam dunk to be able to show that demographic data and gain that buy-in to say, this is absolutely an opportunity. The other piece of it is, within the credit union space, oftentimes we have a higher average age of member. And there's always an opportunity to look for that younger member, and Hispanic community allows for that opportunity as well. So not only are you growing members, but you're growing younger members.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting data that came for you because you're not in the traditional, more southern areas where everybody kind of intuitively expects that there is a high growth Hispanic population. You're in Oregon. You're in a place that's not as naturally. You just go, hey, yeah, of course there's a growing Hispanic market that you see there. At least that was not my natural inclination. It's really interesting that you had that data that said even here. We have a really large growing population that's not being well served by the current institutions. There's not services built for them. So that was, to me, a really interesting finding, given that you're not, where you're located.
Yeah, it's definitely data always helps drive solutions. I always love to see the data back you up. So
talk to me about you have a strategic plan, you see the opportunity. What's step one? Where do you go from there? What are the things that you do, that you have been doing that have been effective in serving that market? There's obviously any number of directions you could go. Talk to me about where you went and what was kind of on the list of to-dos when you say this is an opportunity we should be chasing.
Yeah, I always said that 2019 and really a little bit of 2020 was us getting our ducks in a row, if you will. It was just us understanding how are we currently serving the market today? What are the products and services we have? What are the ways that we can serve them? So how many Spanish English speaking employees do we have? And really trying to figure out, okay, if we want to do this well, what are the pieces that we need to include in our pie, if you will. So if you break it out into 4 different quadrants, you can think of, you've got your personnel, you've got your products and services, you have your processes, and then you have your partnerships and promotional opportunities. And so we were really looking at how do we want to make sure that we're tackling all of these, because if you go after one and not the other, you won't be successful. And there is a specific order that you have to it as well, right? So it's like that pyramid. You have to have your foundation set in order to continue to grow. And so for us, it was really understanding, do we have the right products and services? And that came from having actual conversations with the community to say, what are the gaps you see today? Understanding in the market, just by knowing our different local competitors and other pieces, what is out there today, and then creating adjustments. So for us, we had I-10 lending already, but we needed to enhance it even further. We needed to assess what is the documentation that we require. Will we allow a matricular consular ID, for example? So those were a couple updates. And then we also, just by having that conversation with the community, when we said, what are some gaps that you see today? They were able to share that we want to be able to have a remittance product, essentially. So we want to be able to send money to our friends and family overseas with a click of a button from our phone. So from that, we were able to, I did some research on some different opportunities, and then we formed a partnership with Remitly. And now we have over 1 million that gets sent out on a yearly basis. And so that was just a need that existed to find a way to, conveniently and safely and cost effectively send money back home. So that was just an example. And then another one was, I-10 mortgages and our immigration loan. So I-10 mortgages are more rare in the marketplace today. And then with the immigration loan, we knew we weren't going to get a lot of those, flooding in through the door. But what we did know is that it would help build that trust in the community to say, hey, know that you're striving to, achieve your American dream, if you will. And so we're going to help you do that, whether it's getting your foot in the door with this immigration loan, or it's literally getting your foot in the door of your own home with an I-10 mortgage.
Love it. So you start off with products. What's what's next in your pyramid? You do a survey. Here's the products that you may either need to improve or add to the slate that to serve the community. You got your four. What's next on
Yeah.
your pyramid of
Yeah,
stack?
I would say the personnel is next. And really, you're developing those products simultaneously while you're working on recruiting and developing Spanish speaking employees. And so we actually we did a couple things in that arena. One, we started out with maybe a handful of Spanish English speaking employees. Now we have over 50 in just about 4 years' time. And it really came down to, getting those connections with our recruiting efforts and making sure that we were, sending the message out to the right areas. And then really developing training that met the needs when folks came in. Plus, we also launched Spanish classes for our English speaking employees if they were interested in learning. And so it was a way to just continue to strengthen it all around. And I will say, we sent out, so Copera helped us send out a survey to our employees and our board initially. And we learned in that survey that the good news is that people weren't, there was a range. So people can be in that, I'm rejecting this strategy range to I'm fully embracing it. And for us, we started out, we weren't in the rejection, but we weren't in the fully embraced. So we started out, and it was, we actually were in the comply is the language of it. It was the complying range. So, and that was back in 2019 when we sent the survey. And folks said, okay, we read the comments in addition to the scoring, and the comments were, we don't feel like, we think this is a great opportunity, but we don't think we're going to do a good job at it. So we don't have Spanish speaking employees, so there was concern around how can we make sure that we do this well if we're going to do this. And then you fast forward to just last year, we resent out the survey again, and now we're up to that 90% embrace. So all of our, employees and board members are really embracing this strategy and this culture. So it's been really exciting, but it's definitely some work along the way.
Well, it's fascinating because the employee concerns seem to mirror the concerns I think any executive or team running the project would have, which is like, it's easy to say you're going to do it, but then it's hard to do it well and to actually support those customers in their native language through personnel. I know you also have to translate the website and legal documents, and it's to be pretty complicated to get everything really fully supportive of a Spanish speaking population that wants to transact in Spanish. Did you, how was that process for you? I know that when I've been through companies that have gone through translation, it always feels like, it's like Google Translate can do 90% of it, right? It should be pretty easy. And then you peel back the onion, you're like, oh no, it's not, it's not that easy at all. And I think doubly so in financial services. So tell me a little about actually being able to provide not just employee support, but technical support, applications, experiences, websites in a different language.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. And one of my mantras that I lead when we do this is progress over perfection. So we won't be able, there's some things that you just cannot perfect overnight, but you want to continue to show improvement. And the translation is definitely one of those areas. So when we first started this, we had a landing page that was in Spanish, and that was it. But it was enough to show the community, hey, here's some products and services we think that you would be interested in, that you would benefit from. And we're, continuing to work and grow. And you fast forward to today, now we have our website fully translated. And I'm proud to say we are the first credit union in the Pacific Northwest to launch a virtual assistant or a chatbot in Spanish. And so it just shows that, we're continuing to evolve and grow, and there's still room to grow. We've been doing this for over 4 years, and we still don't have everything fully translated. And we have different side projects to keep it going along this, behind the scenes.
Yeah. And it does become one of those, a burden in a certain way, which is like when you want to launch a new product, it's like, well, do we have to, for anything new, we want to do a new page, we need to have both versions? Does it become a slowing down on any other innovations you want to do that aren't targeted at that community necessarily, where you go, oh my gosh, does everything have to take twice as long now to get everything reviewed in both languages? So it's always interesting when you get there and you go, well, no, but we want to fast follow and move progress over perfection and get there over time.
Right. Right. And today, when we look at that now, we not only are we translating it, but we also have a firm that helps us with transcreation. So that's making sure that our message is not only translated, but it means the intention behind it exists. And so that's another important layer, I would say, to add to the translation process.
Oh, that's fast. It reminds me of did you ever hear the story about they took the Chevy Nova and they tried to sell it in Spanish speaking markets and they left the name Nova, which roughly speaking means no go.
Yes.
They took a car in the market that says this is the doesn't work car, and nobody bought it. And they went, why does nobody buy it?
That's
you got to think
great.
about these things, right? It's not just a little. You got to think about what's actually being said and what the meaning is. So, what's the top? So we've kind of gone through products and personnel. What's the last phases for you, or the kind of the tip of the pyramid, if you will?
Yeah, I would say it's the promotion piece of it. So the next is you're developing those partnerships. So for us, we have a really strong partnership with our Hispanic Metropolitan Chamber. We signed a memorandum of understanding with our Mexican consulate. And so, just finding those partnerships where folks already have trust, and then that trust can faster translate over to the credit union. And then from there, it's getting the word out. It's making sure that you're shouting it from the rooftops and you feel confident that you're ready to hit the ground running and execute well.
And so what are give me the highlight results? Like what have you guys seen as a success from you reach the top of the pyramid, you're promoting, what does success look like for you guys? This is a great story, but I kind of want to know the final chapter. At least I know the final chapter is yet to be written, but the current.
That's right. You got to speak to the heart and the mind, right? You got to have that data as well. So when you think about the data, we've actually seen hot off the presses as of July this year, 37% growth in our Hispanic community, just of members of Unitas alone. And to see that double-digit growth is pretty phenomenal. And we're not seeing that across our non-Hispanic. It is growing, but not at the same rate. So that's been really inspiring. We also have over nearly 15 million in I-10 lending on the books. And so that continues to perform really well. And, from a delinquency standpoint, it outperforms our non-I-10 portfolio. So we continue to perform well and do so in a safe and risk-effective way for the credit union.
Well, if that's not a selling point for other credit unions to hop on board, I don't know a single credit union who wouldn't envy 30+% growth in any demographic, but to also have portfolios that are performing better than your traditional portfolio, that's astounding, right? Often we think of those things as trade-offs. I can attract new customers, but they'll be riskier and harder to have customers that are actually performing very well and growing very rapidly is kind of like it's what everybody's looking for. So that's a pretty awesome story. I love it. Anything else we've gone through a lot of stuff here on this story, but is there anything I didn't ask, I should have asked about the program, or something we missed?
I guess I will also say that, we want to continue to develop our employees. So not only did we recruit and hire some, really talented folks, but we want to continue to develop them along the way. So, we invest in them. We have, through the Hispanic Metropolitan Chamber, we have, what is the Latino Leadership Program. And so that's, a multiple month program where it's actually folks from across the local community. So not all are financial institution. In fact, only a handful are. So it's just giving them a well-balanced leadership development growth, which is exciting. And then there's another partnership that I would be remiss to not mention, which is with Inclusive. So that's another partner similar to Coopera that has really helped us. And with Inclusive, in 2021, we received our Juntos Avanzamos designation, which stands for Together We Advance. And it's a designation given to credit unions that have really been vetted, if you will. It's, we go through an assessment to say, here are the ways that we're serving the community. And, do you feel like we are doing what it takes to do so in an effective manner? And so it's a really proud designation. We were the second credit union in the state of Oregon to receive that. And now there's 4 with many more, I'm sure, to come. So it just continues to be a good partnership.
Awesome. How do you think about finding, you've mentioned a couple of partners between Copera and Inclusive and Remitly. It seems like there's been internal work, but also a lot of partnerships that you've worked on. I'm just curious if you have advice for others looking for partnerships or how you found the right partners to support that initiative, because it's a really interesting balance of the work you're doing internally to build new product or support hiring and training employees in a different way and to translate the website, and then the partnerships that you're doing with outside organizations to support that mission as well. And I'm curious how you think about finding and making those kind of partnerships really effective.
Yeah, I would say some of it just comes from industry experience, So I had worked with both of those partners when I was working with Filene Research Institute, and then my CEO had also worked with both of them just throughout his career as well. So part of that is just that industry experience. Part of it is also, when you go to conferences and you make those connections, as you network and you get to know people and you hear, what are you working, who's helping you, what are you benefiting from, and just having those conversations. And then within the local community, it's just getting out and about and understanding your communities and knowing who are those folks that are have similar visions. So when we think about our community partners, we want to make sure that we're aligned in our purpose and our passion and our vision. And then once you find those, then really making sure that you build those relationships.
Fantastic. I love it. Well, I think we've covered that one pretty well. And we've almost hit perfectly the time we're aiming for, but I do have the standard 3 questions I like to ask everybody at the end. So if you don't mind, I'm going to throw them at you, not rapid fire, but one after the other here. My first question is always, what's the best piece of career advice you've ever gotten?
Yeah, I would say you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. Just surround yourself with talented individuals and the magic will come from there. I'm a huge believer in the strength finders and following, like I said, with my college career, right? Like that was not my strength. So tap into the areas that make me feel good and I'm strong at, and continue to develop and grow. And so I would say once you do that, then making sure that you're also reminding yourself along the way that you need to continue to develop them and yourself, and just be that constant learner.
I feel like that piece of advice is hardest to follow as you start getting into management and leadership, because people feel like when they're the leader of a team and they're in the room, like they should know all the things that the people in the room know and be able to answer the question. And I think it can be really intimidating to feel like, I'm in this room and I don't know how to answer that question, but I'm the leader of the room. And does that mean that I can be where you start to feel imposter syndrome? That sense of like, you should feel good that there's people in the room smarter than you are, I think is hardest to hold on to. It's easy when you're 22 and you walk in, I'm in a room full of really smart people, so great, I'm in a good place. And then it's harder when you're like, wait a minute, I'm leading all the people in this room and they're all smarter than me. And that's intimidating. And that's a moment where I always went, wait, I have to step back and go, this is a good thing. I like this, even if it is a little bit intimidating for me individually, particularly in a position of leadership. I love that advice. Yeah. Second question, what's the best advice you got? I'm going to say about the credit union space. I'm not going to say the banking space, because I know we're talking about credit unions here, but the kind of best industry advice you've ever gotten.
Best industry advice. I would say, and I think it would apply probably more. I would go back and forth because I did have about 10 years in the banking and before I made the switch to credit unions. But I would say it's like risk is always a concern. We talked about it earlier in our session, right? And always, if you're ever in doubt, pilot something. That is the best way to just get things going, get the kinks worked out, and then you can learn. Either you fail fast, or holy smokes, this worked out really well. Let's go and take it a step further. Let's invest even further with it. And I think of that even when you look at, like our I-10 mortgages. We didn't just go out there with an uncapped, let's just lend to everybody. We did so in a prudent way, saying, okay, we'll lend up to, X million. And we haven't quite hit that number yet, but it allows us to do so in a way that helps us test it. And so I would just say, when in doubt, pilot it.
Yeah, I love that advice, because I feel like so often the risk analysis in a financial institution is black, white, yes, no. And it's done with almost with the perspective like, what if our whole portfolio was in this kind of category of loan? And you go, well, Yeah, we might not do that, but that's not what we're suggesting. And the idea of a pilot or a limited scope as a real risk mitigant that allows you to try and learn, I think is underutilized. And too often we're trying to take the analysis as if this is going to be like 90% of your assets are going to be in this thing. And like, what if it does this risk and that risk? And you go, what? Hold on, guys, we're piloting it. We're going to learn it. If it does that, then we'll stop. But like, let's figure this out before we make a final decision. And I think it's just so often I see institutions go too far the other way, and then they just make it almost impossible to try new things when they do that. And I think that's really difficult for folks. So I love that advice as well. All right, last one for you, Corlinda. What is one bold prediction about the future?
Well, I think it's been a hot topic. One, not only not only in the industry, but also in our own household, having students right now. But AI. I think AI is, something that it's here, whether some folks are ready to acknowledge it or not. And I think it's only going to get stronger and stronger in our lives and become more predominant. And so when you think about that in our space, whether it's financial institutions or credit unions in general, it's how can we embrace it versus be afraid of it. And that's the piece of opportunity. That's the prediction, I think, is like those that embrace it are going to win out, and those that run from it are not. So
I love it. Now, as a parent, are you like embracing it for the utilization of home? I will say I've told my kids not to use it, but occasionally when they ask me for help with their homework, I got ChatGPT on the side. How did you solve this problem? And then I'm like, oh, it's very helpful for me. But how do you think about it? On the personal level, I think it's a tremendous tool. But I'm kind of curious where you're at on the using it yourself and with the family, because that's like it's a harder distinction, right? And it's harder to. And it makes me wonder, to be honest, if what the kids are being asked to do, I go, yeah, turns out taking bullet points and turning it into a 5-page essay is just not that interesting anymore. Right? Like that's not the skill that's needed. So I'm very curious how they're going to change how our kids are taught based on the availability of large language models and AI that can do certain things, not everything, but certain things that used to be kind of like when they used to, I feel like it's when they used to fight the calculators in school going, you have to be able to do it.
right.
We teach arithmetic, but like we teach higher order math now because I don't have to do 6-digit numbers multiplied together by hand. I can just put it in the calculator. And I don't think it made us dumber. It was just we had to figure out what the next thing to learn and to teach was, took advantage of that, and then allowed us to do new stuff. But I'm curious your take on it as a parent.
Yeah. I think you've said it quite well, actually. And for us, it's always been don't use it as your crutch. Use it as your tool to make you even better. So it's not there to, save you per se. You still have to, bring forward your thought, bring forward your strategy, and then let it help you enhance your content or your work even further. But don't let it create it for you. So that's been our motto in our household.
I like it. Well, we're all navigating this new world together, but I love the prediction. Will be the future for financial services. And the question is, who's going to figure out how to do it well and take advantage? And those institutions are likely to do better than those that don't. So wonderful prediction. I agree with you. So I don't know if we'll have to hold your feet to the fire and bring you back, but I think that's a great place to leave it. Thanks so much for making the time today and joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's been a pleasure.